"Don't touch my tattoo!" she screamed in the middle of the training field when a recruit accidentally pulled up her sleeve and exposed the anchor tattoo marked with the number 2940. The laughter died instantly. Silence spread like ice. That was no random tattoo. It was the emblem of a SEAL sniper long declared dead, the one who had carved a legend in Operation Iron Shield. But how could an anonymous fitness instructor at Coronado carry that mark? And why did her eyes, sharp as steel yet heavy with pain, look as though she carried the past of an entire platoon on her shoulders? Who was she? And what had forced her to bury her identity until now? A sharp training whistle tore through the Coronado dawn. The rising sun already beat down on the sand field between rows of cold gray containers. In the center of the yard, among dozens of recruits, dripping with sweat as they pushed through endless sets of push-ups, one female figure stood still as stone. She didn't shout. She didn't point. Yet her gaze cut like a blade wherever it fell. The men's breathing turned ragged, their rhythm quickened. Emma Lawson, the newly assigned fitness instructor for Bud, S-Class 462, had no need to posture. Her silence alone forced even the biggest men to strain harder. That morning, a clumsy recruit, Garrison, a young soldier from Iowa, struggled through the bear crawl drill. His hand swung awkwardly, scattering sand and tugging her sleeve off balance. A tattoo showed itself. An anchor. The number 2940. It was visible for less than a second, yet the entire field froze. Not everyone understood the meaning of those digits. But a few eyes, those who had once read the casualty lists from Operation Iron Shield, shifted uneasily, trading silent, unsettled glances. A gust of sea wind swept through, light but cutting down spines like ice. Emma tugged her sleeve back down, expressionless, continuing the drill as though nothing had happened. But from that moment on, whispers followed her at the field's edge, during breaks, in the mess hall, even at evening PT checks. That number isn't for the living. That tattoo belongs only to the doomed. Was she part of the Ghost Division? No one dared ask her directly, but their eyes did, curious, doubtful, touched with fear. Emma lived off base. A rented apartment near the shoreline, where no one watched her rise each morning at 0500 to run exactly 3 miles like clockwork. She ran the wet sand with an old rucksack on her back, a rusted shell casing hooked to one strap. It clinked with every step, a reminder of something she had buried in Afghanistan. She had no friends, no enemies, yet everyone on base kept their distance. Not because she was unapproachable, but because they didn't know where to begin. Coronado had seen its share of ghosts in instructor uniforms, but with Emma, there was something different, something that felt like calm and warning at once, as if she had stood face to face with death and come back carrying something unfinished. At night, when the barracks lights were out, Emma sat alone on the rocks behind her house, wiping her running shoes dry, brushing thin layers of sand off the shell casing on her pack. Every evening, she performed the ritual, and when it was done, she would touch the tattoo on her wrist, the ink blurred with time, and maybe with blood, then rest her head on her knees, staring westward, toward the place where, perhaps, a soldier's soul had never returned. From the day her tattoo was exposed, BUD S-Class 462 watched her more closely. What they felt was part instinctive reverence, part fear of the unknown. Some tried searching her name in military records. They found nothing, almost as if she didn't exist. So who was Emma Lawson? And what could make a survivor bear the number of the dead? The morning wind at Coronado carried the salt air and the steady thud of boots striking raw concrete. On the training ground, a half-circle of men formed around, waiting for a show. No one dared to speak aloud. Emma Lawson stood at the center, still as if she had melted into the sunlight, her shadow stretching long across the ground as the only reminder of her presence. Sweat had yet to dampen her back, but the air was already thick with tension, heavy as if something was about to fall from the sky. Captain Harrison, uniform crisp, stepped out from the command building, hands in his pockets, eyes sharp as twin blades. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. The plastic board listing the test scores of 19-year-old recruits placed squarely in front of Emma was declaration enough. If you were ever really SEAL, why are you hiding here? The words cracked across the yard like a starting pistol. No reply, no flicker in her eyes, no crease in her brow. Emma simply stepped forward, stripped off her dark windbreaker, and revealed a body carved with scars, the faint anchor tattoo marked 2940, glinting beneath the edge of her tank. The test began. 80 push-ups. She didn't count. Each descent was a drop into memory. Afghanistan, the prison camp, comrades falling one by one. She wasn't doing this to prove anything. She was doing it to remind herself she was still alive. Pull-ups 20. Her arms trembled on the last rep, but her gaze never shifted. Around her, the recruits fell silent, smirks gone. A few even nodded quietly. She didn't see. She didn't need to. The run, 2 miles. She shot forward like a silver arrow cutting through the sea wind, her boots pounding dry, rhythmic against her heartbeat. No cheers. No one ran alongside her. But every eye followed, and when the clock stopped at 13:32, no one dared to add a word. Emma walked back. Silent, shoulders steady. She didn't lift her head. She only slipped on her jacket again and left, as if no one had watched, as if no challenge had ever been made. But no one moved, not even Captain Harrison. He didn't clap. His face betrayed nothing, only the faint curl of his lip, half mockery, half bitterness, for he knew this round he had not won. By afternoon, the story spread through the base like fire in dry grass. A civilian had just outperformed SEAL induction standards. Yet that evening, she still returned to her small apartment by the shore, still ran alone with a battered pack and rusted shell casing clinking against her back. No celebrations, no beers. Only the sound of waves and tired feet carrying her into the dark. In her scrawled handwritten journal, she wrote only one line, 13:32. For no one, just so I can still breathe. And behind the door of apartment 3B, the woman who once collapsed in the desert now quietly field-stripped her, Glock 19 cleaning each part like a ritual, as if war still waited somewhere out there. Only this time, she wasn't returning for orders, she was returning for the truth. And now, dear viewers, pause with me for a moment. Hit that subscribe button before we continue with the next chapter. But only if you truly connect with what I've shared here. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It's incredible to see people from all across the country joining us together in this story. The wind screamed past her ears like the howl of darkness itself. That night, the waters of San Diego Bay were no longer calm. The usual gentle ripples had hardened into jagged waves, icy as nails raking across a spine. Emma stood on the edge of the boat, her figure cutting into the sky like a silent scar. The recruits' headlamps flickered offshore like fireflies, but one red dot on the survival map had just vanished. Wilkins. Signal lost. No echo. Harrison barked orders to conduct the standard sweep, but Emma was already reaching into the rescue kit. Her fingers clenched around a red signal light, clipped it to her chest strap. Her eyes met no one's. She needed no permission. Splash! She hit the water, slicing straight into the black whirlpool off the port side, the place no one dared to enter, not even in daylight. Beneath the steel-cold current, Emma didn't swim, she glided. Each kick drove her forward, arms carving hard through the spin. Muscle memory led her like a military computer, counting beats, measuring force, navigating bubbles. Eyes open against the salt sting, she caught the red light's glow bouncing off the reef wall. A shadow drifted into view. Wilkins, body tilted, eyes shut, fingers twitching faintly. She closed the gap in 4 strokes, locking his shoulder with a cross-chest hold before driving her legs upward. Her back arched, her kick widened, breaking free from the whirlpool like a tuna slipping a net. When her head broke the surface, her breath tore out like fabric ripped by a blade. She shouted for medevac, then began compressions 222, pinched his nose, gave a long breath. Again. Again. No words, no wasted motions, each move so precise it left the entire BUD's crew frozen on the boat. None of them had ever seen medical drills executed with such mastery by a so-called civilian instructor. Wilkins coughed up seawater. His throat spasmed, then he heaved in ragged breaths. Emma paused for 1 second, not from fear, but because she knew he would live. She withdrew like a tide receding, wiping water from her face. Her eyes flicked past Harrison, standing rigid, jaw clenched so tight a vein threatened to burst. But she didn't stop. She tore a strip of gauze from the medkit, bandaged Wilkins's hand. Inside her jacket pocket, if anyone had noticed, was a silver chain holding a worn-down dog tag. In the smudged glow of the night lamps, the last 3 digits were just legible, 940. Harrison saw. For the first time, he had nothing to say. Bud, S, Class 462, saw as well. No more suspicion in their eyes. What they felt now was recognition, the realization that they were being trained by a living legend, a warrior who never spoke her name. Emma stood, breathing slow. Her left hand still trembled faintly from the old bullet wound in her hip, but no one saw. Only the sea saw. And the waves that eased behind her seemed to withdraw in gratitude. What kept Captain Harrison awake that night wasn't the rescue. It was the photo waiting on his desk, stamped from the Pentagon, bearing the trace of a woman long declared, killed in action, Afghanistan. The night wind slipped through the chain-link fence, hissing like whispers from the past. On the deserted training ground sat a lone figure, Emma, her eyes wide, fixed on nothing, as if trying to see through time, through dust and fire, back to the moment when everything shattered beyond repair. Heavy footsteps sounded behind her. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. Harrison. The old scent of gunpowder clinging to his jacket and the harsh edge in his voice when he spoke confirmed it. Ghazni, Iron Shield, the 27th of March. His tone was dry, like earth scorched by bombs. Is it true? You survived that night? Emma said nothing. Not because she couldn't remember, because she remembered too well. Ghazni, the name clung to her like a bloodstain that never dried. The storm of bullets, comrades screaming over comms, ragged breath under a gas mask as tracer fire tore across the night, none of it had faded. And among it all, there was Thomas. Thomas Harrison, a young spotter, the one who had once smuggled her a pack of candy during their first march in Syria. The soldier, with the sly grin, the southern drawl, the only one bold enough to call her Ghost Sis. My brother, he wrote to me. Harrison said, voice lower, softer, almost as if speaking to himself. He told me not to believe what the brass said. He trusted you, said you'd never leave a man behind. Emma lowered her head. Her hands pressed into her thighs, knuckles white. That night, when the helicopter went down, she had gone back defying the order to retreat. She had searched for Thomas through the hail of gunfire, but all she found was a shattered helmet and blood soaking the wreckage. But the CIA report, Harrison choked, never listed his name. No casualty notice, no body, nothing. The words cut like ice. Emma's fingers dug into her skin until her nails left marks. The darkness around them thickened, heavy like battlefield mud filth that didn't just stain but seeped deep into the bone. She remembered signing that report, under pressure, under the threat that if she told the truth about Thomas, about the covert mission handed outside the system, she would be erased forever. So she stayed silent, and Thomas disappeared from history. They stood there, unmoving. A commander carrying decades of loss in his eyes. A veteran scarred by secrets buried too deep. Emma reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small object, a tarnished dog tag, the engraving worn, but one final line still legible. If she runs back, trust her. Harrison froze. For the first time, his eyes dropped into complete silence. He took the tag, his hand trembling. He left it in my pack, Emma whispered, her voice breaking the night for the first time. I didn't abandon him. I carried the only thing left. There was no forgiveness in that moment, but something softer emerged, quieter, a crack in Harrison's armor opening for the first time. If Thomas had never existed in the system, then who erased him from history? And was Emma ready to break her silence? To fight for justice for the man who once called her sis? The heavy rain hammered the window like the knocking of unburied memories. In the empty room beside the barracks, where a dim yellow light barely revealed an old rucksack and a pair of worn-out combat boots, a satellite phone vibrated in silence. No ringtone, just a faint tremor, like the last breath of a nameless dream. Emma answered, her lips pressed tight. On the other end came an aged, trembling voice, as though rising from the belly of the sea. Kid, compartment 9, the old sub at Pier G, they haven't erased it yet. Her heartbeat skipped. She didn't ask, who is this? She didn't need to. Some sounds follow a soldier for life, waiting only for the right moment to return. Her left hand turned over her right wrist, slowly, as if peeling away a layer of time. The anchor tattoo was still there, dark, steadfast, but just beneath it, under the skin where blood moved slow, lay a faint band of symbols. The navy blue ink had faded, but anyone who'd ever worked in a pressure chamber aboard an aging submarine would know. This was no ornament. It was a mechanical code, a hidden lock. And the number 2940 was not for remembrance, it was a key. For a brief instant, she saw it in her mind. A gray steel submarine, moored quietly at Pier G, nameless. Unmarked, unnoticed. A coffin of metal in the heart of the bay. Emma rose, pulling on her field jacket, heavy with oil and salt rain. She carried no weapon, she didn't need one. Instead, she opened the side pocket of her rucksack and drew out a scratched brass plate, an ID marker from Operation Iron Shield. On the back, hand-etched, every man you lose is a piece of truth that must survive. Through the driving rain, she walked along Pier G like a ghost returning. The wind lashed, spraying brine across her face, but Emma didn't blink. Her expression was one of pure focus, the look of someone who had peeled back more layers of lies than any intelligence report could contain. At compartment 9, she stopped. Beneath the rusted steel lip was a crude, welded hatch, no military markings. But with the number 2940 and the coded band on her wrist, she knew what to do. A gentle twist, 3 presses, then a lateral pull. The hatch screeched open. The stench of damp metal rolled out, like the exhale of a wreck long buried in the bay. Inside, emergency red lights still pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of a dying soldier. Beneath a military tarp lay original files never digitized. And one name handwritten, slanted, rough. Thomas Harrison. Emma didn't smile, but her eyes lingered, closing slowly, not from the rain. On the first page, next to a fingerprint that matched the records of the mission, was a penciled note in the margin. If I don't come back, tell my brother I trusted her until the very end. Silently, Emma folded the file, slid it into a waterproof pouch, and left the compartment. Outside, thunder cracked in the east, but to Emma the only echo was that final message and the certainty that she was no longer alone in the truth. If Emma now had proof of Thomas, then who had tried to erase his name from history, and why? A blade of lightning sliced through the night sky. The guard post lights flickered, then died just as she had planned. A strip of wire, a few quick twists of a folding screwdriver, and the entire dock sank into darkness. Wrapped in her dark windbreaker, Emma slipped into the night like an underground current. The chain-link gate, once sealed by an electronic lock, was now dead. She crouched low, slid past stacks of containers, and dropped onto the rusted rail that led to the hidden bay. Around her, sounds pulsed the stomp of patrol boots, the wash of the tide, and her heartbeat, steady and loud in her chest. The Sturgeon-class submarine lay motionless, a forgotten wreck, its steel hull coated in brown rust, stinking of salt, oil, and memory. Emma switched on a red flashlight, its dim beam just enough to trace the curves of steel. The faint number 2940 appeared along the side. She smirked. Fate had a bitter sense of humor. She crawled in through a maintenance hatch, moved down the narrow, corroded corridor, fingertips brushing the cracks of rusted metal. At compartment 9, she dropped to her knees. 3 bolts, just as the old voice had said. Her gloved hands turned them one by one, calm and unshaking. A soft click. The panel slid free. Behind it, a chamber the size of a safe, its titanium shell faded to dull gray. She rolled up her sleeve. The code inked beneath her anchor tattoo glowed faintly, the sequence only someone trained in deep-sea pressure drills would understand. A green light blinked. Lock released. Inside was no paper, no files. A storage device, sealed in moisture-proof wrap and old military cloth. She powered the built-in screen. A shaky image came to life. A young soldier, curly hair, brown eyes, Thomas. Alive. He stared into the lens, voice low and clear. I, Sergeant Thomas Harrison, confirm being reassigned under Order Raven Echo to assist cross-border tunnel operations against original mission command. Emma's hand clenched. Raven Echo, a name erased from every official report. In the final seconds, Thomas bowed his head. If anyone receives this, tell my brother I never hated him. Tell him I never betrayed the trust. The screen went black, the silence did not. Emma stood still, not from shock, but because every missing piece had locked into place. The falsified reports, the erased records, the hatred burning inside Harrison. She pulled out her encrypted phone and typed one line, Thomas alive, at least until June. Betrayal fabricated. Then she deleted it. No one would see it except Hayes. Emma glanced back once more at the submarine's chamber where memory and lies had been buried. Then she walked away, carrying the only thing that mattered, the truth. But was truth enough to bring down the shadow called Phoenix Dawn? The titanium box rested on the table, lit only by the faint glow of a floor lamp. For a moment, the entire room froze along with the hard lines of Harrison's face. His eyes locked onto the small screen inside the box, where Thomas alive, thinner, but still standing tall, appeared against the backdrop of a hidden base never mentioned in any official record. No words. Just the sound of heavy breathing, and the way Harrison's hand clenched tight, veins raised, as if he could hold his brother's spirit inside that fragment of video. Then he spoke, voice raw. Thank you for not leaving him. Emma didn't answer. She only gave a slight nod, then turned away, leaving him alone to face the ghost that had haunted his entire command. 1 week later, the ocean wind still rattled through the old wooden window frames at Coronado as it always did. But a military newspaper carried a different kind of gust. On page 3, beneath a modest headline, Sniper 2940 Guardian of the Forgotten Names, was an anonymous article. No photo, no service record. Just passages describing a female soldier who had disappeared after her final mission, yet never stopped fighting for the truth. At the end was a single line. They didn't die, they were filed away. I only want to bring them back where they belong. Inside memory and inside honor. That night, in her quiet beachfront apartment, Emma stood before her laptop. An email from the Department of Defense waited. Subject: Ghost 6 reactivation. Are you ready? Below, a plain message. We know you don't belong to the shadows, but those who need protection are still out there. She hovered over the delete key. Her finger touched it, then froze. Slowly, she clicked restore. Not because she wanted to return, but because she had never truly left. Morning. The sky over Coronado broke into pale gold, thin as an eggshell. Footsteps tapped against the concrete tap, 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 steady as the heartbeat of a habit that refused to die. Emma ran 3 miles. As always. But this time, 2 figures ran behind her. One, a young base recruit, awkward, straining to keep up. The other, a civilian agent, short hair, steady breath, eyes that seemed to know rifles more than lipstick. No one asked, no one spoke. Only the sound of running 3 sets of steps, 3 breaths merging together beneath the newborn sun. And with it came a slow realization. Ghost 6 was never just one person. It was a promise, a tradition, a door that never fully closed. Some wars never hold funerals. No flags folded on coffins, no mourners at the grave. They unfold in silence, in buried files, in erased memories, and inside the chests of the living, scarred, unseen. Emma Lawson wasn't coming back for recognition. She didn't run for glory. She came back for one reason only: the forgotten names. Her story makes us pause and ask, in this noisy world, who is still quietly protecting the truth? And if you've ever felt buried, broken by wounds or by misunderstanding, remember, there are people like Emma still running every morning for you. Because justice isn't always loud. Because honor doesn't need spotlights. Because sometimes one person refusing to quit is enough. But this was only the beginning. Because after that email from the Pentagon, a network had begun to stir. The codename Phoenix Dawn wasn't truly buried. And an old figure, someone who had once stood in the shadows beside Emma, was returning, carrying a USB loaded with evidence never before released. The question is, when Ghost 6 is reborn, who will be the target? And who will be the final traitor? If this story has touched your heart, if you believe truth deserves protection, share this video with your friends, your family, across the United States, especially those who have served or who still walk quietly in the same silence Emma carries. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from, what time it is, and what part of this story made you stop and think. And if you want part 2 of Ghost 6 sooner, let us know with one word: ready. We read every line you leave. And who knows, maybe the next story will be yours. Because Ghost 6 never really disappeared. She's only been waiting for the right moment. Are you ready for what comes next?